Welcome to my shop. My name is Rachel Gingell. In this video, I'm going to show you how to repair the hydraulics on a Ford tractor. Behind me is a Ford 800, but these techniques apply to a 500, 600, 700, 800, or 900 tractor, as well as the 01 series, meaning a Workmaster or Powermaster. And even if you have an early 2000 or 4000 Ford with the 4-cylinder gas engine, you'll be able to follow along. Now notice that I did not say a NAA or a Jubilee. Those tractors look the same, but the hydraulic system is different, and this video won't help you. You will know that you have a tractor that applies to this video if you have a flat spot in the middle of your axle instead of a nut like a Jubilee, or if these pieces here are solid on a Jubilee, that won't apply, or NAA. But if you have holes in it like mine, then you have a tractor that would apply to this system. There are other differences between those models, and I have a separate video that outlines them in great detail. So if you need help identifying your tractor, you should click over to that video first. But if you have a tractor that you know will apply, go ahead and follow along. At the end, I know that you'll have the confidence to repair the hydraulics on your own tractor. Here are some common problems on Ford tractor hydraulics. Maybe you have the same problem on your tractor. One problem is a loss of draft control, meaning that you can move your arms up or down, but in between there's really no control. My lever, I don't know if you can see how easily this moves down. It shouldn't move this easily. Another symptom would be arms that jerk or shake. They just don't go smoothly up and down. Another problem would be within the top lid, meaning that the tractor arms will go up, but then it slowly drifts down on its own. Like they won't hold an implement up, or just hydraulics that don't work at all. Those are all symptoms that we are going to address in this video. Hopefully you have those same problems. We'll talk more about troubleshooting as we go along. The very first thing that you want to do to help you diagnose your tractor is to remove this cap right here. Start up the tractor, shine a flashlight in the hole. Don't put your hands in the hole, but just shine a flashlight in the hole and see if you can see any of the oil moving around. If you can hear the oil raining down, that would give you an indication that there's a problem with the relief valve or within the top lid cylinder or piston. If you can see it moving around, that'll help you know where the oil is going or not going within your system. So before you take anything apart, I would recommend taking this cap off, shining a flashlight in there, and seeing what you can see the oil doing, because that will help you. Once you take the tractor apart, it's harder to diagnose. So take the time to go ahead and look in there, see if you see the oil moving down or around in the bottom, and that'll help you out. Now I am going to take off the bolts around here, around the perimeter. I am not going to take out these ones in the middle here because those hold the cylinder in. So I'm going to leave these 3 and just remove the ones around the outside edge here, which will free up my top lid to come off. Also in the back here, I do have these arms that hold the 3-point arms. Those pins come out. Every once in a while, I'll have to heat those pins up. They'll be really rusted, but they should just pull out to free up the arms so that the top lid can come off the tractor. Up here, I'm going to take these 4 bolts off so that this plate will come off, and then there's 1 bolt underneath there that holds the cylinder. I'm going to take that 1 bolt off. I'm going to take the 1 bolt off underneath the plate and leave the other 3 to hold the cylinder into place. I'm using a pry bar to pry underneath the draft control seat spring here to loosen up my top lid. Then once it's loose, I can pick it up and pull it back towards me, but I'm picking it up far enough so that I don't damage this linkage that's here. So be careful when you pull it back, not to pull it back too far and rest on that. Once it's up, it's easier to lift up onto the bench, but I'm going to get some help with that. The very first problem that I see on my top link has to do with this pivot pin down here. This is a commonly overlooked piece, but it's vitally important. If your tractor does not have draft control, meaning there's no in-between, then it's entirely likely that the problem is within your pivot pin. You can see how worn my pivot pin is right there. It rides along this cam and it just wears out. Mine is worn, but I have seen them broken off completely, and yours may be the same. Here's what a new pivot pin looks like. You can see that it should be completely round and about that long. So if yours looks different, then you probably have a pivot pin problem as well. Like I said, it's very common. A pivot pin is a very affordable part to add to your cart so that you have it on hand if you are going to order parts before you take your tractor apart. go ahead and add the pivot pin because it's just so likely that that's a problem. You can see that I took 2 cotter pins out here to free up this linkage. Once I have this free, this entire piece will just pull out. I'm going to set it aside. That allows me to move this cam forward so that I can get to the pivot pin easier. So I'm going to hold this up. I'm going to put like a big screwdriver right underneath here to kind of hold that in place. It's not blocking the pin from coming out, it's just holding it in place. Then I'm going to swing around here to the front of the table. I have a punch that is appropriately sized. I'm going to hold the punch on here into place, and then I'm just going to give it some good whacks and it'll come right out. Okay, it just went through. I'm going to pull it out and set it here on the magnet so that you can see how worn it is. That is an excellent example. I'm so glad that that was broke like that so you could see how bad it is. Definitely needs to be replaced. I have my new pivot pin in my hand. I sprayed some WD-40 on it so it'll slide in the hole a little bit easier. This, you just punch it right in just like you took the old one out. You have to get it perfectly straight. If you get it crooked, you're in trouble. So make sure you get it in straight. This is a pivot pin that we sell. Ours is a hardened metal that is improvement over the original style, so it should last longer. This is a part that my grandpa developed, and when he died, he had a whole box. He had about 100 of them. So I have those, and I've been using them on my tractors. They've worked really good, and I have those available to you too if you need a new pivot pin. So I'll just set this in here. I'll add some safety glasses, and then I'll just drive it right in. I drove my pin in all the way until it's flush. You want to do the same. By replacing this pivot pin, you are taking the sloppiness out of the linkages. Once I hook this back up, we'll notice a big difference in the way that these linkages operate. This is an important step. I know that it's hard, but stick with it. You don't want to skip this. Please note that if you are working on an N series Ford, an NA or a Jubilee, that the older tractors have the same pivot pin set up. So this is one step that will apply across models. Taking off my last bolt here so I can free up the lever. The lever should come out. Let me give it a little tap. Looks like it's really stuck in there. Once I have the lever out, then this control plate will come off. Mine was terribly oxidized, so I did heat it up, so I'm just being careful here how I touch it since it might still be a little bit hot. You may have to heat up yours as well. The original plates are aluminum. A new replacement plate would be steel. So this is a better upgrade to take off the aluminum and put the steel on. Let me get a second pry bar behind it. You just keep prying it off. You might have to hit it with a hammer a little bit if you need to. Notice that I'm hitting the plate. I'm not hitting this part right here since that is threaded. I don't want to do some damage there. So get yours off. Notice that there is a key underneath here, and then there should be a Cork gasket underneath there. You can see only about half of mine is on there. I'm going to get all of this off and out of place. I have my new Cork ready to go on. This is going to make such a nice improvement over where it was. This is going to give me resistance so that when I put the lever into place, it'll stay where I want it to stay rather than just sag down on its own. After I put the Cork on, I got to put the key back on since the Cork won't slide over with that key in place. I'm going to rest it there and then just tap it in to hold with the hammer there. I have my new friction disc here. I'm going to line up the key and then it will slide right on. Must not have my key in quite enough because this is going on a little bit hard. Let me take that off and see if I can tap my key in just a little bit further. Yeah, I saw it move there. Okay, try again on the friction disc here. That key's still giving me a little bit of a hang up. It's just not straight across. Let me try again. Now, gotta turn it around. As I loosen that up, it kind of wants to roll. Okay, third try, and it works. Okay, so I have my friction disc on. I'm gonna spin this around, and then I have my new lever, which will go into place. My old lever was bent, and this one will just work a lot better. I'm replacing everything else new, so why wouldn't I wanna put a new lever on it while I'm at it? I'm gonna tighten up both of these bolts here, and then put my nut on the end, and this will be all set. Be sure to make an adjustment to your resistance. If you over tighten your lock nut, this lever will be way too hard to move. So just play with it a little bit, make sure that it has a good amount of resistance, and you can change that by backing out your lock nut or moving it in a little bit farther. In front of me are the pieces that you are going to need to repair the top lid on your tractor. Now you might not need all of these pieces depending on what's broken on your tractor, so I'm going to talk through them and then you'll be able to decide exactly what you need. To my right here is a complete hydraulic cylinder. Notice that it already has the relief valve on it, and then when I flip it over, you can see that the piston is inside. It has the backers on it. This is just ready to go right onto your top lid. If you want easy, then this is what you would want to purchase because it's all ready to go. If you don't want to replace your entire cylinder, you can buy a piston individually, or you can buy a piston with the gasket set that I have here. This has the gasket for your perimeter, all little O-rings that you need, and then these two pieces go on to the piston here. So we offer this as a set, as you see here, or you can upgrade to the gasket set with the piston. You can purchase that either way or individually. Also, we offer this top lid gasket by itself as well. So you got some different options there. Let's go back this way. You can see that there's a new ramrod here. You can purchase your relief valve separately if you desire. This is the pivot pin that is so important in the top lid for that draft control. These are very affordable and make a big difference in the top lid. So if that's a repair you want to tackle, be sure to add one to your cart. Also, there's drain plug gaskets that you can purchase. Over here we have some external components. So you can buy a new plunger and spring, as well as the sheet metal piece and the felt for it. All those pieces you can purchase individually, as well as the new rocker assembly. Here's the new pins for your 3-point arms if you want to replace those, or if you damage them, taking them out. Then over here we have a new lever and the quadrant that the lever goes onto with the Cork backer for it. All of these 3 pieces are sold individually as well, in case you only need 1 or 2 of them instead of all 3. So these parts are all available on my website, which is farmtractorrepair.com. You can purchase these as well as pump parts if you need to replace both parts in your top lid and your pump. You can get them all at the same time on my site, farmtractorrepair.com. Let's talk about the hydraulic cylinder now. Up here you have plates on either side. This side has a spring behind it, so when you take the 3 bolts off for the plate, make sure that you move each one evenly so it pulls off together, and then the plate will come off. Behind there's a spring, and behind that is a bushing that holds it into place. This isn't really a replacement part, we're just taking it off so that we can clean it. Once you take that plate off and then the plate on this side, you'll be able to pull this control valve out. It is in the cylinder just like this. Let me pull that back so you can see how it goes in there, okay? Then you can pull the control valve out, and again, you're just taking this out in order to clean it as well. Make sure that there's not any burrs or grooves on it, and then once it's all cleaned up, you'll be able to just put it back in the same way. I did flip my top lid over and remove those last 3 bolts that would free up the cylinder to come out. So now I can just lift my cylinder off. Notice that that ramrod was in there to the piston. Every once in a while, these ramrods will be broken. So if you discover that yours is broken, you can buy a replacement ramrod. If you do have this casting broken off, then you'll need to get a new top lid from a salvage, as that is a deal breaker. It's non-repairable. So hopefully you just discover your ramrod's broken, or that it's in good shape like mine. I don't have to do a replacement. Now we're going to talk about the cylinder with the piston inside. First, let's discuss this relief valve. The relief valve is held on kind of like a spark plug. It's 11/16" wrench. Just loosen it up. There's a little washer behind it. Make sure that you get both the relief valve and the old washer off. And then a new relief valve is here with a new style washer. Notice how there's a little bit of a bevel or lip to it, and that goes in this fashion. You can replace the relief valve if you desire. Those are sold independently of the top lid kit. It's just an add-on if that's something that you feel like you want to replace. And the new relief valve is not 11/16, so I'll get the wrench and tighten that up in a minute. While I'm right here, you can see that there are some small O-rings up here. You can just pick these out and then replace them with some new ones. The new O-rings come in your top lid, your lift cover repair kit. There's a lot of little O-rings in there, so you'll just go through your kit and hold them up until you get the right size O-ring. But there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that you need to replace right here. So just make sure you find the right size O-ring and put them in. Now I'm going to talk about the piston. So the piston that is inside your cylinder, you probably want to either replace the piston or at the very least replace the leather in the O-ring that is on your piston. If your tractor slowly drifts down on its own, that's often a symptom of a problem within your piston. So in order to get the old piston out, you need to take a blow-off nozzle and apply a little bit of air pressure through this hole, and that will cause the piston to come out. Now when you do this, the piston's going to shoot out pretty fast, so just make sure that the direction of your piston coming out isn't going to do any damage to another person or something else that's in your shop. Once the piston is shot out, you have the choice to either replace the piston or just replace the leather in the O-ring. I'm going to put a whole new piston in, which would be the basic top lid repair kit, if I remember correctly, which comes with the new piston. So first you put this leather on. You can see that I had my leather ring here in a bowl of hot water just for a minute to help it stretch over. These are a little fragile, and if you end up breaking your leather or O-ring, we can send you one independently of the kit if you need an extra. The order that I put these in is important. Notice that I put my leather on first, and then I'm going to put the O-ring on top. This O-ring's a little hard to stretch around there too, but I'm getting it. There we go. Let me show you this. You can see the way that I have my piston. Leather here, then the O-ring, and it's going to set into the tractor like this with the ramrod in here, and that's how it's going to go into my cylinder. If I had my piston removed, I would be ready to put my new piston in. I would spray some WD-40 around here first, set it in place like this, and then I just use like the rubber handle end of a hammer to drive this piston into the cylinder, and then I'm ready to put it back on. Now, if you look at this and you're like, oh man, that's a lot of steps, I want to do something easier, or if when you feel inside your cylinder and it's extremely grooved, you need to replace your cylinder. This is what the replacement cylinder looks like. When you buy the replacement cylinder, it comes with the piston and the rings and the relief valve already set to go. So if you want an easy option, choose this, or if your cylinder is damaged, then you'll need to choose this, and it will save you from buying the new piston separately. So you got two options there, just if you want to rebuild the one you have, or if you want to go with a complete replacement, you can choose whichever route you want. I put some heat right on this flange in order for this to come off. There are threads inside this yoke piece here. Let me get this off and I'll show you the threads. Those are stuck. On very rare occasions am I ever able to get that off without heat. They're just really a problematic piece. Next, I'm going to take these 3 bolts off here. Oftentimes the sheet metal piece will be broken. Mine's not broken, but it is very loose. If yours is broken or loose, you will definitely want to do some repairs here on this back end. It just affects all of your linkages, and it's really important. Next, this will kind of come off. Mine came off automatically. Sometimes they'll be stuck and you'll have to hammer it off. But this piece is the part that we want to replace. That's where all the most of the problems lie. Once you have that off, you can take off this plate, which you'll reuse, and then you'll see some remains of an old felt inside there. I'm just going to slide that right out. And then I have a new felt piece to go in. This comes as a complete circle, but because of that dowel underneath there, I decided to go ahead and cut out a little bit of a notch for the dowel so that it will slide in there easily for me. The notch for the dowel is going to be down here at the bottom, and that lines up with the new notch that is in the plunger, like that. That's what I have to have lined up inside here. If for some reason your plunger is broken, we do offer a new plunger to you. It is quite involved if you need to replace it. You got to take all these arms off and these linkages. It's doable, but it's not easy. It's a lot of work. So if your plunger doesn't need to be replaced, just reuse it. Only replace it if you're having trouble. I have that held in there. Just going to let that rest while I get my support seat spring here ready to go. This will just slide over like that. First, I'm gonna put it through here because it's kind of got to rest in this groove. Let me show you here. This comes over and it gets lined up just like that. You press it in there. It is sheet metal, so it's a little bit bendable, but I don't want to damage it. Once I have that held into place, I'm going to get one of my bolts started, and it will kind of help pull everything in and together. Notice on these bolts that I didn't tighten one up all the way and then come back to the others. Instead, I tightened them up a little bit at a time. This sheet metal piece is fragile. I don't want to damage it. Once that's tight, you're ready to put your spring on. I have seen these broken from time to time. So if you inspect your spring and notice that it's damaged, you can purchase a brand new one and put that on. Or if yours is in good condition, it's definitely a piece that you can reuse. The spring just sets on there into place, and then you can put your yoke on the end. I'm going to put a little bit of WD-40 on those threads though first. And then I will put this on. I'm going to start it by hand, and then I'm going to use this punch through the hole here to help me turn it. You want to tighten this all the way up until it's snug, but not overly tight. You aren't trying to compress the spring at all. You just want it to be snug and tight. It's important to not overlook the load valve that is located right here in the top lid of your tractor. I am using a fine threaded bolt to go into the valve right here. I put some washers or this big socket in there, anything to kind of be a spacer. I grab onto that valve, and as I tighten it, it pulls the valve out. Sometimes I'm able to get the valve completely out, and I want to get it out so that I can clean it. However, this one, once I got to the edge, it got stuck. It made me nervous that I was gonna break it, so I stopped right here at the edge where I am. Let me take that off so you can see it. I'm not gonna proceed further. If yours is coming out easier, you can take it out completely. But if you get to this point and it's coming out a little hard like mine, don't wreck your valve here, just stop. I'm gonna tap this back in. Okay, it feels like I'm probably bottomed out, so let me go ahead and take this bolt out of there. Next, I'm going to put this little ball and valve at the end. So I'm gonna drop this in there, and whoops, I just lost my spring. Let me put that back together carefully. Came out this way because this is what holds the ball right there. I'm gonna set that into place. Make sure that it moves back and forth. Push it with your finger. You wanna make sure that it's clean before you put everything back together. And then once it's clean, you know that it's moving, you can go ahead and put this cap back on. I have all of my linkages here hooked back up. We're just gonna pan so that you can see them in case you need to reference to match this for your own tractor. Two little O-rings are right here, and it's important to pick them out. This is a spot where they will blow out with the gasket here, so if you have a leak in your system, that is probably why. You get new O-rings in the head gasket kit. I have all of the rest of my gasket scraped off here. I got a little bit left that I need to finish up. You can use a wood chisel like this. Some people like to use a razor blade, and then I follow with I call this a whizzy wheel, I don't know what the proper term for it is, and finish off to get all that old gasket off. Make sure you do the same on the top lid. Once you have that off, replace the two O-rings, put a new gasket on without gasket sealer, and then you're ready to drop your top lid into place. One other thing that could be wrong on your tractor is if these lines here are broken, they'll blow out. It's common in colder climates because sometimes if water gets in the system, those lines will expand and freeze. But you would have been able to determine that from the inspection hole that we talked about at the beginning of the video. If you looked in there and you saw oil spraying all over, those lines are broken. So I'm going to finish cleaning off this gasket. I'll put my new gasket on, and we'll put the top lid into place. If you damage this pin while removing it, you can purchase a new one. These are really affordable and they'll slide in there. Also, if you need a new rocker assembly for right here, you could very easily install and replace that. That's just taking out those pins and putting it back in if you need it. I have my arms hooked up here. I'm gonna connect the top lid to my rocker assembly. I'll hold that up in place and I'll drive my pin through and we'll be all hooked up back here. Clean oil is important to your success. I drained the oil out of my tractor in all 3 compartments here, and then I will refill in all 3 compartments. Now, in the olden days, you would have put 90 weight in your transmission and your rear differentials and hydraulic oil in the middle. But the problem with that is that oil does transfer between the 3 compartments. So if you get 90 weight into the hydraulic system and it goes into the pump, it's too thick for the pump and will damage the seal. Therefore, I recommend a updated oil, which is this hydraulic and transmission oil, for all 3 fill compartments here on your tractor. That way, when and if the oil transfers, you aren't going to have any damage between your transmission, your hydraulics, and your rear differentials. So go ahead and fill up those 3 places. And also, when you take off your caps, we call this a drain plug gasket, but it also fits onto the cover. So take the old gasket off, put a new gasket on, and fill up all of your compartments. Also, when I had my tractor apart, I did clean out this center cavity here. I used some carb cleaner just to spray it down, make sure that it's thoroughly clean before we reassembled. I'm gonna start the tractor up and show you how the arms work. Okay, here we go. I'm gonna lift my lever up, and you can see that the arms respond well as they should. If I put my lever here, they hold in place, so I have good draft control. I'll go the rest of the way up. I don't have any shaking or jerking. This is how the arm should operate. Hopefully at the end of this video, you have the confidence to tackle your own hydraulic repair and that your hydraulic arms will work the same way when you are done. This video covered only the top lid. If you have a problem with the pump, I have a separate tutorial which shows you how to rebuild the pump, which will coincide with this video that you may want to watch. If you need a little bit of help with your hydraulic system, we'd be happy to hop on a phone call with you. We offer a tech support service. You can schedule the call on my website. You pick a time that works for you, and one of the techs will call you. There is a small fee for that service, but a lot of people find that it's beneficial to them to talk to an experienced mechanic through this system, the repair that they're doing, if you just need a little bit of extra coaching or you have some questions after this video. It's important to note that I took my wheel and fender off only so that you can see. When you do this repair on your own tractor, leave the wheel and fender on. No need to take that off. Please subscribe to my channel so that you can get a notification every time we release a new video. And also, when you're ready, purchase the parts on my website. It's farmtractorrepair.com.